With us now is Dr. Alveda King. Such a pleasure, privilege, and honor to be with you here today.
It is wonderful to join you, Richard.
Thank you. I'm so much in admiration of what you and your family represent. And in fact, right here on the table, I have this magazine. I'd like you to look at the title. My friend wrote this article. He asked me to give you this. How government persecuted those we now honor. How they persecuted people like Dr. Martin Luther King, who is now honored. So there's so much of that goes on. And I'd like you to share. First of all, this is from Bill Falloon to you. I'd like you to have it.
Thank you.
He also asked me, he wrote this book, he asked me to give it to you. This book, Pharmocracy, about the questionable things that occur in that world. But anyway, I'd like to give it to you on behalf of my friend Bill.
Thank you very much.
And I'd like to ask you about the persecution your uncle was subjected to just because he believed in these immense essential values. With us now is Alan Dershowitz. Alan, it's such a pleasure and honor to be with you again.
Always my pleasure to be on with you. Such smart talk coming from you and good questions.
Well, I can hardly react to that because you're just about one of the most brilliant people in this world. In fact, you remind me of Abba Iban. I had the privilege of interviewing him a few times years ago.
I just wrote about him today. I'm writing a memoir now of my defense of Israel over 70 years. And I just quoted Abba Iban at the end of the 1967 war when he said, "This is the first time that the losers are demanding unconditional surrender and the winners are suing for peace."
Speaking of books, Bill Falloon, our friend, just wrote another.
Oh, wonderful. I'd love to read it. I will read it with interest. Thank you. Tell him good luck on his book.
Thank you, sir. So Judicial Watch's information and sources are all factual, no fake news.
No fake news. You can't argue with the government documents, and that's what I love about our work is that when we get materials from the government and we show it to the American people and say, hey, what do you think about this? This is what it says. And so there's no debate too much about what's in the actual documents.
Speaking of constraints, in the United States, the FDA, Food and Drug Administration, allegedly is giving some vitamin companies a hard time. And in fact, Bill Falloon, the founder of Life Extension Foundation, wrote this book he wants me to give you
for you
to peruse.
Okay. Well, it'd be interesting to compare the situation in the States with the UK.
I would suppose so, yeah.
We do it better than any other. And because we can therefore personalize our brains, guess what? We become individual people. And that is something that evolves throughout your life. And it's, of course, that process, those connections that are dismantled in Alzheimer's disease, which is why one sees the disintegration one does of someone you love, someone that had lots of memories, sadly, leaving that behind.
Is an organization that is in the forefront of medical research, very interested in India as well. It's called Life Extension. And the owner asked me to give you this book. Again, yes, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Pleasure.
Thank you. Great pleasure. Thank you.
I'm surprised to hear that medical research and so forth is quite prevalent here in Las Vegas. In fact, the Shalom Show's main sponsor happens to be Life Extension Foundation, and Bill Falloon has some offices right here in town for Life Extension. They sell vitamins and so forth and do research into the diseases of aging. He wanted me to give you this book, by the way.
Well,
Bill
that's
Falloon.
Lovely.
Yeah.
Thank you very, very much.
You read a lot, I'm told. So,
well,
yeah.
And not only do my husband and I read constantly, but we have a son who does prostate cancer clinical and lab research. And he's an MD, PhD, and the PhD is partly in pharmacology, which is so critical today because, you know, when something's wrong, you have so many doctors attending all those diseases and each prescribe different medications, and it's how they work together. And of course, this little piece of equipment and everything to do with technology can bring everything together to one place so you can work the pieces. So I love this, and good health, and appreciate it, and please thank you very much.
You are an absolutely historic personality. You've been the mayor for 12 years. In fact, I just saw this book, which I'm going to have to confiscate. Being Oscar, from mob lawyer to mayor of Las Vegas, only in America. Well, Mazel tov, it's fantastic.
No, this was my memoir. After I finished my term as the mayor, I sat down and I wrote the book. It just took me a little bit of time to do it because they're all true stories, and I had practiced criminal law representing alleged mobsters for 35 years before I ran for the mayor. I was the mayor for 12 years and sat down in my new capacity. I'm the chairman of a host committee for the Las Vegas Convention Authority and had some spare time to do it, and it's been well received. It's fascinating when you go to the airport and you see people coming into Las Vegas. They're smiling as they get off the plane because they know they're going to have a good time. And even if they lose a little bit of money here or spend a little bit of money here, when they get back on the plane, they tell everybody they had a great time and they're still smiling wherever they land. But I will tell you this, that I heard you met with my wife, and you'll probably have her either on this segment or another segment. Beautiful woman, bright woman, and she made history in the United States, as did I. We're the only couple where the spouse swore in a spouse to succeed them as a mayor.
Phenomenal, all that occurs here in Las Vegas. Mr. Mayor, a real pleasure and privilege.
A pleasure having you here. And do you want me to autograph this to you?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, this is being
essential.
Oscar, from mob lawyer to mayor of Las Vegas. You can see, there's the brand. I have my two beautiful showgirls, got my martini in hand. Gets no better than that.
No better.
And a lot of your viewers live in Florida, and a lot of your viewers don't, but one day will, and I'll look forward to meeting them when they move down here.
A real honor having you on the show again,
thank
sir.
You very
Thank
much.
you so much.
Thanks.
I'll be right back. It so happens that right here in South Florida, our main sponsor is Life Extension. And Bill Falloon, the founder, they're in the forefront of research into anti-aging and reversing aging, in fact, and stem cell therapy and so many other. And they were the first to advocate mini aspirins, for example, and coenzyme Q10. And Bill asked me to give you one of their magazines. I would like to send you a monthly edition of this for you just to be on top of what's going on.
Well, thank you. I'm fascinated with the healthcare industry, and certainly aging is a primary issue here in South Florida, and how you age properly and how you take care of yourself and how you preserve the quality of life that we have.
Addressing the diseases of aging is their prime mission statement, and I'd like you to speak with Bill Falloon one of these days if you have time. I think you'll find it very interesting.
The Israeli Supreme Court is a jewel, and even though Israel does not have a written constitution as such, they do have a basic law which protects freedom of speech in a way that would simply be unthinkable anyplace else in the Middle East.
How interesting. Sir, I'd like to thank you so very much for being with us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mentioned in categories like, rising star, and to be able to be put in, the fact that you've interviewed so many prominent individuals, I'm honored to be part of this broadcast. So what the future holds, we'll see. But right now, I am running for re-election, and I'm going to, hopefully stay at this job a while longer.
I and many of my team have great admiration for you, as Bill mentioned earlier, and I would love to see you continue with the wonderful work you're doing. In fact, I wish all the state attorneys in this country were half as dedicated as you. I want to thank you so very much for being with us today.
Richard, thank you. Thanks for having me on.
Many people in our audience would like to know more about Z Street. Where are you at right now?
Right now, and for the past almost 6 years, we've devoted our energy to litigating this lawsuit because the IRS told us not only were they going to apply strict scrutiny to us, but they also deep-sixed our application altogether. So they never acted on it. They froze our application. So we could not fundraise, we couldn't do anything other than spend the money, as our board decided, to go forward and force the IRS to explain themselves, to explain why they did this, took action based on our viewpoint.
Now the important part isn't that I got on for free, it's that 12,000 people willingly said, we want you to be our sheriff. And the community will get it right, and the community's strongly behind me. I have a lot of support, raising a lot of money and doing the things we need to do. And we're going to get reelected, but can't do it without you.
Well, especially at this troubled time in history, we need dedicated, inspiring leaders such as yourself, Sheriff.
That's the secret sauce, if you will. but that's kind of how we've moved forward.
A real pleasure. Thank you for the great work you're doing.
Thank you.
With us now is Ambassador Michael Oren. Sir, an honor and privilege to meet you.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here, Richard. Thank you. It's always interesting times for the State of Israel, but these are very also promising times for the State of Israel. Not just in terms of our economy, which is one of the fastest growing and healthiest economies in the world.
And I can say that I know that they are living here in the United States and in Panama or in Miami.
Working with the people that I work with and have worked with in the past, you know, we do a lot of good things to protect the community and help to enhance the quality of life. I think it's something that has a great purpose, and I want to be part of that purpose.
It's been a real pleasure to have you on the show again,
Always
sir.
good to see you, sir.
You absolutely are an inspiration to so many. A real pleasure to have you with us again, and I'd like us to come back again in the future and catch up.
Thank you, Richard. It's an honor to be here with you and to be on the show with your viewers. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. With us now is Tony Holt-Kramer and Robin Bernstein. A real pleasure to have you on the show today.
Richard, so happy you're here.
Absolutely.
Great day. Just a great day.
I would say so. This is so interesting. What an odd time in history with the politics in this country. With us now is America's Mayor, Mr. Rudy Giuliani. It's a pleasure, sir.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be with you. Thank you very much.
We actually met in New York City ages ago, but here we are today. Interesting times in history.
Oh, couldn't be more interesting, right? We're right down to the wire of it.
Absolutely,
probably
sir.
the most important election of our lifetime.
With us now is Mark Rosenberg, president of FIU. It's a real pleasure and privilege to be with you here today, sir.
Thank you, sir. Nice to see you. Of our students, and the quality that I most admire about our students is their determination to be successful, sometimes against very, very high odds.
I just encourage the audience, no matter where you live and no matter what your background is, to support the colleges and the universities in your area. They are the places that where young people come and their lives are changed by what they learn and what they learn that will then impact not just themselves, but their families and the communities that they're going to live in for many decades in the future. So I urge our viewers to support the colleges and universities in your communities. Thank you.
So it's been a real privilege. Thank you so very much.
Thanks, Richard.
I'm on location in Panama in the Life Extension store with Claudio. It's a pleasure to meet you, sir. Thing is, I don't speak Spanish and Claudio doesn't speak English, but they're selling plenty of Life Extension products right here, and we had the pleasure of interviewing some community leaders right here in Panama, and we're working on distributing more of Life Extension products all over this area and hopefully all over Latin and South America.
There'll be a lot of opportunities for these kind of buildings or smaller buildings. We're missing a lot of things that still have to be done, like theaters and...
With that thought in mind, I want to thank you so very much, David.
Thank you, Richard. A pleasure meeting you, and I hope you do come back. It is a great show to have in Latin America and make all Latin America integral part of each other.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you. I'll be right back.
Took me about 10 years to write it. So.
Good Lord, that's quite a tome.
Yes.
And speaking of books, our main sponsor, Bill Falloon with the Life Extension Foundation, and you've been an advocate of life extension products in health for so many years. He wanted me to give you this book, so here it is, Pharmocracy, speaking of controversy.
Thank you, William. I appreciate it very much. I've been a user of life extension for many, many years, and that's my secret. But I certainly enjoy the products, and I'm very grateful to you for the book and for the idea of life extension. I hope many more people use it. Thank you very much.
I'm in the presence of real genius here, and I hope you don't mind my saying this, but I'm really quite impressed. If you might, would you share with our audience a little bit of your background? You invented Sirius and so many other things.
Yes, I began my career in satellite communications, created Sirius XM satellite radio. Our youngest daughter was subsequently diagnosed with a life-threatening condition called pulmonary arterial hypertension. There were no medicines approved by the FDA for this condition, so I devoted myself after hours to trying to find a cure, a medicine that had been at one time developed but not proven. I eventually found a few leads, nothing more than that. It took a full-time effort, so I left Sirius XM. I sold a lot of my stock, put all of my capital, risked everything into a new company to develop a treatment. And today we have 4 treatments for this disease.
With us today are 2 world-renowned visionaries, one in the practice of law and justice and the other in health. Jay Sekulow is Chief Counsel for the American Center for Law and Justice, and his passion for defending religious liberty has led him to expand the ACLJ's operations to numerous offices all around the world. He's also advocated for people and organizations allegedly targeted by the IRS. With us also is Bill Falloon, the co-founder of the Life Extension Foundation, with his mission to support scientific and medical-related research in preventing degenerative disease. Life Extension is working to extend the human lifespan as a global authority and advocate for longer life. With us now is Jay Sekulow and Bill Falloon. A real pleasure and honor
to see
have
you.
you on the show.
Glad we were able to meet, work this out.
Absolutely.
Great.
Good to see you again, Bill.
Hey, Bill. Good to see
Jay,
you.
very nice to see
Good to see you.
It's interesting. I'm sitting here with so much intelligentsia at the table. Now, you wrote this amazing book, Jay, Undemocratic, really amazing. And it so happens you have a lot in common with my executive producer who wrote this book, for Democracy. So,
I'm Big Pharma.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, okay.
How
Yeah,
Americans are being ripped off by high-priced drugs that are mediocre in their efficacy, but rather dangerous in their side effect profile.
Yeah. Oh, look, that's part of the regulatory environment we live in. I mean, this is all part and parcel of the same huge problem.
I don't want to date this conversation, but there's so many important things going on in the world at this time, especially with regard to tax reform as well. In fact, Bill, you have some ideas on that.
Well, what we've encountered at the Life Extension Foundation is that the FDA is no longer the big impediment in getting new technologies through the system. The IRS is attacking exempt organizations who are performing critical research, and the IRS is blocking their ability to fund scientists.
So this is really a new phenomenon. This was not in existence when I was at the IRS 35 years ago. When I was a young lawyer at the Internal Revenue Service in the Office of Chief Counsel, we litigated tax cases. And we didn't get into whose politics, what their positions were. You either exempt if you were, you got your exemption. If you weren't doing exempt purposes, you didn't get your exemption. It was straightforward. That's not the way it's done now. So now what's happening is the political machinery of the regulatory government, and that's what we're dealing with. I call it a fourth branch of government, basically, unelected fourth branch of government, operates and exists, and there's no checks and balance. So Congress passes a law, and the amount of regulations that come out of the United States Congress exceed what Congress actually wrote in the law. There are more regulations by volumes than actually the Congress creates when they pass a bill and eventually becomes law when signed by the president. So that you've got this juggernaut that has taken off right now, and unfortunately, it's not getting better with age. I mean, it's not like a fine wine. This gets worse with age. And the reality is, I think if you're looking at some of the innovative, I've talked to a lot of medical experts, doctors, physicians, that say they're just stifled in their ability to. The universities are having problems. I mean, this is an ongoing problem.
Well, what the public seems unaware of is those unelected bureaucrats that occupy the IRS indefinitely.
Yeah, lifetime. It's basically, I call it the equivalent of a lifetime appointment, because once there, you're not getting them out. The best example of that's Lois Lerner. She was the main architect of the targeting of the conservative groups. What was her penalty? Nothing. Eventually, she resigned.
She got to retire.
With her full pension and retirement benefits. Now, if it was anybody else, they would have been indicted. I mean, that's the reality. But one of the things I talk about in Undemocratic is this idea that you have to have the way we view in the private sector, you retain your job because of merit. You've earned it, and you keep your job. If the company's doing well and you're doing well in your job, you keep it. But if you don't, you lose your job.
That's not the way the government works. And the IRS, by the way, is not the only example of this, but it is, I think, the one that impacts most people's lives more than any.
You know, the fundamental premise of which you and Life Extension has been battling is defending the First Amendment.
Yeah.
And when it comes to what Life Extension does, we disseminate truthful, non-misleading scientific information to the public, such as low-dose aspirin.
Yeah.
Everyone now knows that reduces heart attack and ischemic stroke risk.
Right.
But when we first came out with it, FDA spent 15 years trying to censor that information.
Yeah.
And you're in the same situation.
Yeah, so the 81 milligram Bayer aspirin, or whatever aspirin you take, right. Actually, that came up in an oral argument once. Not my case. I had a case right after it. And I'll never forget the Chief Justice bringing that up. But, well, it took forever, he said, to get the 81 milligrams aspirin approved. And
15 years. 1983, Life Extension brought it out. We didn't sell the product. We just told people, take low-dose aspirin, reduce your risk of heart attack. And the FDA came in and seized property. They tried to put us in jail. They did not like that information being disseminated. Now it's the IRS, though. IRS is stepping in and filling in the FDA's shoes.
Well, what has happened is the IRS has taken on a dimension to itself way beyond tax revenue collection, which is what the IRS was supposed to do. So when I worked for the Office of Chief Counsel, Internal Revenue Service, our job was collect revenue. So if someone didn't pay their taxes, go after them, civilly or criminally if it was a criminal case. If there was an exempt issue, make sure they either were or were not exempt, operating within exempt principle. But we weren't supposed to get into the policy of whether it was good science or whether it was good medicine. If it wasn't fraudulent, if it was if it was within an exempt purpose, that's how you're supposed to approve it. The reality is, if you look at alternative medicine, which is, of course, or what do they call it, integrative medicine, now the major hospitals are doing it. I mean, before, for years, decades, they never did it. I had back surgery 5 years ago, and actually Ben Carson, partner, did my back surgery at Johns Hopkins. I had broken my back while I was actually in Israel. And when I had the surgery, the doctor said, I want to try something different on you. He was a leading neurosurgeon, so he could do it, which was not to do a fusion, even though if you looked at it statistically, it would have been a fusion.
Right.
Okay, so he said, I want to see you're healthy. I want to see what will happen. Not as a guinea pig, but see how I recovered fine. And then I did a very holistic version of physical therapy, not the traditional, take your knee, shove it up to your chest stuff, which hurt after back surgery, but rather a method called Egoscue, which is a lot of golfers use. And I'm a golfer, but also it's a lot of athletes use it. It's a much more holistic, but people will say, but they have to be very careful and say we're a non-medical pain relief, because if you say medical, it creates a whole thing. So look, words have meanings, things have meaning. This is part and parcel of the problem.
Well, I'm involved with a lot of tax-exempt organizations, and starting about 4 or 5 years ago, I had to think about every email I wrote. Am I going to say something?
Look, I hope you're still thinking about it. You should be thinking about it right now. Look, you have to be careful. The reality is, if you looked at the questions that the IRS was asking our clients, who they were talking to, who their elected representatives were, did they have conversations with their elected representatives? Is a family of yours or a family member of yours thinking about running for elective office? Who asks these things? Yeah, this is the problem. Who asks these things? Well, unfortunately, the IRS.
Well, it goes beyond that. It's just if you're an exempt organization, you have to inform them every year on your 990s, that's your annual tax return, what you're doing.
I'd like to ask you to please come up and say yours. It's truly an honor to be here tonight. Back in here in 1977, I incorporated an organization right here in South Florida. We had a Pompano Beach laboratory, and I set up an organization called the Life Extension Foundation. We're a non-profit group, and since 1977, we've been growing. We're currently the world's largest consumer-based anti-aging medical group in the world. We have members everywhere. We have an incredible concentration of members right here in South Florida. But what I want to talk about is what's going on today to suppress the dissemination of truthful information. I'm talking about state-sponsored censorship that is resulting in people needlessly dying. An example of what our Life Extension Foundation has been doing is getting information out, such as 1981, we were the first to alert people that if they had cardiac issues, that daily use of low-dose aspirin might very well reduce their risk of having a heart attack. We went to war with the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, for over 15 years to force the FDA to allow makers of aspirin to communicate that very simple message that low-dose aspirin may reduce the risk of coronary atherosclerosis, heart attack, ischemic stroke. We forced the FDA to allow that claim. And in doing so, we know we've saved millions of individuals from premature injury and death due to vascular problems. Now you may wonder, what connection is there to a science-based organization? Life Extension is a science-based organization. Why have we been the longest-term supporters of the Shalom Show? Richard Peretz is the founder of the Shalom Show. He's been airing this nationwide for over 30 years. And we have been the primary supporters of Richard's Shalom Show. Now, there's a reason for that. Richard Peretz, he's the son of Holocaust survivors, and he is getting out information every single week about important Jewish issues, about important issues about Israel, but from our standpoint, he is educating in a non-soundbite way. 30 minutes of educational information that we feel is of benefit to mankind. And since we have the most distinguished law professor sitting right beside me, I want to give everyone a little bit of a view of what Life Extension's law, or view of the law should be. Life Extension views any law that diminishes humanity in any way or any form as an illegitimate law that is too often used by governments to suppress truthful information. These illegitimate laws that diminish humanity are also used as a framework for crimes against humanity. And we at Life Extension want to suppress every single law that is causing people to needlessly suffer and die. I'm going to give you a brief example of how this law works. It is illegal in this country right now to disseminate information about a drug that the FDA has not approved of. Even an FDA-approved drug in which the use has not been approved of, such as low-dose aspirin. In 1981, aspirin was legal, except you couldn't communicate information about its potential to reduce heart attack risk. So since I have Alan Dershowitz right next to me, I feel very comfortable about saying that this particular drug, called Tagamet, I'm sure you've all heard about it, it's a heartburn remedy, but it has an interesting side effect. And here's where I'm breaking the law right in front of everybody. I'm going to tell you right now what the side effect of Tagamet is. If you have cancer and you properly use this drug, you may reduce your risk of that cancer killing you by about 50%. This is information that manifested in the early 1980s. Our Life Extension Foundation published this information. We talked about it, but nobody listened. In 1996, the journal The Lancet, one of the world's most prestigious scientific journals, published a study of colon cancer patients. Half the cancer patients were given cimetidine 5 days before surgery. Cimetidine is a generic name, by the way, for Tagamet. You can buy this in Walgreens, CVS, Walmart. It's available everywhere, very inexpensive. But half the group were given cimetidine 5 days before colorectal surgery. The other group just got the standard therapy. Both groups did get standard therapy. One was fortunate enough to get cimetidine. And I'm going to tell you right now why they were so fortunate. 3 years out, 41% of the people in the group who were not getting the cimetidine were dead. They died primarily of metastatic colon cancer. In the fortunate study group to receive the cimetidine, after 3 years, only 7% of them had died. That's a 6-fold improvement in 3-year survival using an over-the-counter drug. Doesn't cost a lot of money. It's not patented for the use in cancer treatment. Anybody can use this, but it's illegal to tell you about it. And that's a law that we have to abolish. So I can't tell you how proud I am to be introducing a man who has succeeded in abolishing censorship. He succeeded in defending us against illogical laws, illegitimate laws, and in getting the word out about what we must do to continue defending our freedom against the inappropriate use of laws to diminish humanity. Alan, I can't tell you how proud I am.
Now get straight to our program. Really big yasher koyach, big thanks Mr. Richard Perez. Without him, this would not be here today. On a personal level, Richard has been a friend of Chabad for many, many years. We wish him good health. We wish him the koyach, the strength to be able to continue to do the good work that he's doing for many, many years to come.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure and honor to be with you here today. I'm going to say a few words before we begin, and then this will become a TV production which you will witness here. I'd like to acknowledge all of you. We're all friends and family, and I really am proud and happy to have you with us here today. Rabbis and all of you, and Brigitte, my daughter Maya, friends and family, and of course we even have a world-famous artist, Tia Crystal, here. And my dear friend Abe Fischler, President Emeritus and founder of Nova University, right here with his wife Shirley. Thank you for being with us here today.
What you're really saying is that you're looking to turn back on senescent stem cells in a way that they start functioning in the elderly person's body in a manner analogous to when they were younger.
We're very much hoping so, yes.
That is absolutely tremendous. That is true age reversal, something that up until a few years ago, very few people understood was possible.
With us now is Lieutenant General Michael Flynn. An honor and privilege to meet you, sir.
Hi, Richard. How you doing? Nice to meet you.
Interesting times we are witnessing, sir. What are your feelings with regard to the future for this great nation?
Well, I will tell you, I think it's filled with opportunity. I think the American dream is going to be restored. I believe that we are seeing a potential reformation of the system of our government, where the American people now feel, really probably for the first time in potentially a couple of hundred years, that the American people actually have a voice now, at least at the federal government level. And I think that it's not just the last 8 years. It's been sort of a deafening silence of the American people because of the buildup of a lot of corruption inside the government. And I think what we're seeing today, what we've seen this week, it's just an amazing opportunity for the American people. Frankly, if America thrives and grows economically like we know it can grow, and we will make it grow, then the rest of the world benefits. And I think that's in fact, I know that's the direction and the vision of Donald Trump, the next president-elect.
With us now is Mr. David Horowitz. A pleasure and honor to be with you, sir.
Thank you for having me. Well, I've been doing this since 1994. It's an annual meeting. It was modeled on the Clintons had a Renaissance weekend. So we call this the Restoration Weekend.